My mother-in-law showed up to my wedding in a white lace gown with a veil and called herself the mother of the groom bride. I had security remove her, and now my husband says I ruined his family forever. I, 29F, got married 3 weeks ago to my husband David, 31M. And what should have been the happiest day of my life turned into an absolute nightmare because of my mother-in-law Patricia, 58F. She showed up to our wedding in a full white wedding dress, not just white, but with a cathedral-length veil, a bouquet that matched mine, and she literally introduced herself to guests as the mother of the groom bride. When I had security escort her out, she caused a massive scene that ended with her sobbing on the lawn and half the wedding guests leaving early. Now my husband hasn't slept in our bed for 2 weeks, his entire family has blocked me on social media, and I'm being called a cruel, heartless bridezilla who destroyed a grieving mother's attempt to feel close to her son on his special day. That I need to give you some background on Patricia, because this situation is so much more complicated and insane than it sounds. And I'm genuinely questioning my own sanity at this point. That I met David 4 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He was kind, funny, successful as a software engineer, and we clicked immediately. He told me early on that he was very close with his mother. His father had passed away from a heart attack when David was 19, and it had always been just the two of them after that. He was an only child, and Patricia had never remarried or even seriously dated anyone after his father died, and I thought it was sweet at first. I love that David was caring and attentive to his mom. My own father left when I was young, so I appreciated a man who valued family. But over time, I started noticing things that made me uncomfortable. Patricia called David every single day, sometimes multiple times. If he didn't answer, she'd keep calling until he did. She had a key to his apartment and would let herself in without warning. I can't tell you how many times we were in the middle of something private and she'd just walk in. David always defended it, saying she was lonely and he was all she had. She also had this weird habit of talking about David's father constantly, but always in this possessive way. Your father and I had such a special bond, she'd say. No one will ever understand what we had. We were soulmates. She'd say this while staring directly at me, as if daring me to challenge her. When David and I got engaged after 2 years together, Patricia's reaction was strange. She congratulated us, but then immediately started crying and said, I just never thought I'd have to share you with anyone else. Not in a sweet, sentimental way. In a way that made my blood run cold. The wedding planning was a battlefield from day one. Patricia insisted on being involved in every single decision. She wanted to choose my dress with me. She wanted to approve the venue. She threw a fit when we chose a DJ instead of a string quartet because that's what David's father would have wanted. Never mind that David's father had been dead for 12 years, and David himself preferred the DJ. The worst was when she demanded to be included in our engagement photos. Not like normal mother of the groom photos. She wanted to be in the romantic couple shots. She showed up to the photo shoot in a dress that matched mine and tried to pose between us, holding both our hands. Our photographer was so uncomfortable. David finally told her those photos were just for us, and she left crying, saying we were excluding her from her own son's happiness. My friends kept telling me these were red flags. My maid of honor, Jessica, straight up told me I needed to set boundaries or this marriage would be hell. But David always had an explanation. His mom was grieving. His mom was lonely. His mom just loved him so much. He promised that once we were married and settled, things would get better. She just needed time to adjust. About 6 months before the wedding, Patricia started making comments about my wedding dress. She'd ask what style I'd chosen, what color. It was ivory, not pure white. Whether it had lace, whether it was traditional or modern. I didn't think much of it at first. Mothers-in-law are usually interested in these things. But then she started showing me pictures of wedding dresses on her phone and asking my opinion. I assumed she was helping a friend or looking for mother-of-the-bride dresses for someone else. 2 months before the wedding, I went dress shopping with my mom and my bridesmaids for Patricia's mother-of-the-groom dress. I'd invited her because I wanted to make an effort to show her I wanted her involved in appropriate ways. We went to a boutique that specialized in formal wear for weddings. Patricia tried on probably 20 dresses. Every single one was either white, cream, or ivory. Every time we suggested a different color, a beautiful sage green, a dusty rose, an elegant navy, she'd wrinkle her nose and say, "That's just not my color." She finally chose a champagne-colored dress that was so pale it was basically white. But it was a respectable length, modest neckline, clearly a mother-of-the-groom dress. I convinced myself it was fine. Pick your battles, right? I should have known then. But I was so focused on being the bigger person, on not being the stereotypical bridezilla, on keeping the peace for David's sake. The week before the wedding, things got weird. Patricia posted on Facebook about how she was having such a hard time with David getting married, how she felt like she was losing her baby, how weddings were bittersweet for mothers. Normal enough, except she posted it with a picture of her and David from when he was a teenager at his father's funeral. They were both in black, holding hands, crying. It was bizarre and inappropriate, but David said to let it go. She was just processing her emotions publicly. Then 3 days before the wedding, Patricia called me. She was crying. She did that a lot. She said she wanted to apologize for being difficult during the planning process. She said she was so happy for us, and she knew I'd be a wonderful wife to her son. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking about her late husband, and she'd come to peace with the fact that David was moving on with his life. She even said, "I'm going to make sure your wedding day is perfect. I promise." I was so relieved. I actually cried happy tears. I thought we'd finally turned a corner. I called David and told him, and he was thrilled. "See," he said, "Mom just needed time to adjust. Everything was going to be fine." The wedding day started beautifully. It was a late September afternoon, perfect weather, at a historic mansion with gardens. We'd spent so much money on this day, nearly $40,000, but it was worth it. Everything looked like a fairy tale that I was in the bridal suite with my bridesmaids, getting ready. My makeup artist had just finished, and I was about to put on my dress when my wedding coordinator, Michelle, knocked on the door. She looked stressed, which was unusual for her. She was normally so calm and professional. "I need to talk to you about something," she said quietly. "Patricia just arrived." "Okay," I said, not understanding why this was an issue. "Is everything all right?" Michelle hesitated. She's wearing white." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Like the champagne dress we picked out?" "No," Michelle said. "I mean white. And you need to see it." I wrapped myself in my robe and went to peek out the window that overlooked the front entrance. And there she was, Patricia, my mother-in-law, climbing out of her car in a full wedding gown that wasn't just any wedding gown. It was almost identical to mine. A-line, lace overlay, sweetheart neckline, long train. Pure white. She was even wearing a veil, a cathedral-length veil that trailed behind her. And she was carrying a bouquet of white roses and baby's breath, almost identical to my bridal bouquet that was sitting in the bridal suite that I watched in horror as she walked toward the entrance, and I could hear her talking to guests who were arriving. "Oh, thank you. Yes, it's such a special day. I'm the mother of the groom bride. I just couldn't resist getting dressed up for my boy's special day." Mother of the groom bride. She actually called herself that. Jessica, my maid of honor, was looking over my shoulder. "What the actual fuck?" she whispered that my hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a nightmare. I was going to wake up and this would all be some stress-induced anxiety dream, but it wasn't. Through the window, I watched Patricia pose for photos with arriving guests, holding her bouquet just like a bride, tilting her head at that angle brides do. She was literally pretending to be a bride at my wedding. My mom came into the room. When we told her what was happening, she went sheet white. "That woman has lost her mind," she said. Then she asked me what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I was frozen. Part of me wanted to hide in the bridal suite forever. Part of me wanted to call off the entire wedding. But mostly I was just heartbroken. How could she do this? After everything, after her promise that she'd make sure my day was perfect, how could she show up dressed like a bride? Michelle offered to talk to her. I agreed, hoping that maybe this was some kind of misunderstanding, that maybe Patricia didn't realize how inappropriate this was, that she'd change if someone gently pointed it out. Michelle was gone for 10 minutes. When she came back, she looked furious. She refused. She says it's her son's wedding, and she can wear whatever she wants. She said the dress has sentimental value because it's similar to the one she wore when she married David's father. She claims she's honoring his memory. That was a lie. I'd seen Patricia's wedding photos. Her original dress was nothing like this one. This was a dress she bought specifically to upstage me. Jessica asked if I wanted her to accidentally spill red wine on Patricia. My bridesmaid, Chloe, suggested we have the groomsmen physically remove her. My mom said we should call the police, but all I could think about was David. What would he say? Would he support me? Or would he defend his mother like he always did? I asked Michelle to get David. She looked uncertain. It's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony, but I didn't care anymore. This was more important than superstition. David showed up at the bridal suite still in his getting-ready clothes. The moment he saw my face, he knew something was catastrophically wrong. Your mother is wearing a wedding dress, I said. My voice sounded hollow. A white wedding dress with a veil. She's telling guests she's the mother of the groom bride. I watched David's face carefully. I saw shock, then confusion, then something that might have been anger. What? No. That's not. There must be a misunderstanding. Go look for yourself, I said as he left. He was gone for 15 minutes. When he came back, he looked sick. I talked to her. She says it's a formal gown, not a wedding dress. She says it's ivory, not white, and you're overreacting. She's refusing to change. David, I said very slowly, she is wearing a wedding dress and a veil to our wedding. She is pretending to be a bride. At my wedding. I know it looks bad, he said, running his hands through his hair. I know, okay? But she's already here, guests have seen her, and if we make her leave or change now, it's going to cause a huge scene. Can we just get through the ceremony and deal with this later? Please. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to get married while your mother is dressed as a bride at my wedding. She's struggling with this, David said. I know it's wrong. I know. But she lost my dad, and now she feels like she's losing me, and she's not handling it well. If we humiliate her in front of everyone, she'll never recover. Can't you just be the bigger person here? For me. Be the bigger person. Those words broke something in me. I'd been the bigger person for 4 years. I'd been understanding about the constant phone calls. I'd been patient with the boundary violations. I'd included her in planning decisions, even when she was being impossible. I'd swallowed my discomfort and my frustration and my anger over and over again because I loved David and I wanted peace. But this was my wedding day. The one day that was supposed to be about us, about our marriage, about our future. And his mother had shown up in a wedding dress, and David was asking me to just accept it. No, I said. Absolutely not. Either she changes into appropriate clothing, or she leaves. Those are the only options. David's face fell. Come on, don't do this. Don't make me choose between you and my mother. She's the one making you choose. I shot back. I'm just asking for basic respect on my wedding day. We argued for another 10 minutes. David kept trying to find a compromise. Maybe Patricia could take off the veil. Maybe she could put a jacket over the dress. Maybe we could have someone Photoshop her out of the pictures later. Each suggestion was more insulting than the last. Finally, I said, if you can't support me on this, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. That stopped him cold. I saw real fear in his eyes then. And I saw him make a choice. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I'll tell her she needs to change or leave. But he didn't sound like he meant it. He sounded defeated. David went back down. I waited in the bridal suite, watching the clock. The ceremony was supposed to start in 45 minutes. Guests were arriving, taking their seats, admiring the decorations we'd spent months planning. And somewhere down there, my mother-in-law was parading around in a wedding dress. David came back 20 minutes later. She won't budge. She's crying hysterically. She says we're being cruel to her. She says Dad would be ashamed of how I'm treating her. She's threatening to leave entirely, and if she does, half the guests are going to follow her out because they'll want to know what's wrong. Let her leave, I said. I'd rather have her gone than have her dressed like that. My entire family is here, David said, and he was almost begging now. My aunts, uncles, cousins. If my mom leaves crying, they're all going to think you're the villain. They're going to blame you. Is that really what you want? And that's when I realized David wasn't going to stand up to his mother. Not really. He was going to keep trying to find ways for me to accommodate her insanity because confronting her was too hard, too painful, too risky that I made a decision. I called Michelle back and told her to get the security team we'd hired for the venue. When the two security guards arrived, both very professional, both very large, I explained the situation. I told them there was a guest in a white wedding dress refusing to change or leave, and I needed her removed from the property. David grabbed my arm. Wait, please. Let's think about this. I have thought about it, I said. I've thought about nothing else for the last hour. Your mother is wearing a wedding dress to my wedding, David. A wedding dress. And you're asking me to just accept it. So I'm making this decision myself. I gave the security guards Patricia's description and told them to escort her off the property as discreetly as possible. Then I asked Michelle to delay the ceremony by 30 minutes and to make an announcement that we were running slightly behind schedule due to a wardrobe issue. What happened next is mostly secondhand because I stayed in the bridal suite. But multiple people recorded it on their phones, and I've watched the videos about 100 times now, trying to understand how this became my life. The security guards approached Patricia in the main hall where she was holding court with a group of David's relatives. They politely asked her to come with them. She asked why. They said there was a dress code violation, and she needed to either change her outfit or leave the venue. Patricia started crying immediately. A dress code violation? This is my son's wedding. I'm the mother of the groom. You can't throw me out. One of the guards said, very professionally, Ma'am, we've been instructed by the bride to ask you to leave if you're not willing to change into appropriate attire. You're wearing a wedding gown to someone else's wedding. That's when Patricia completely lost it. She started screaming that I was a monster, that I was jealous of her relationship with David, that I'd always hated her, that I was trying to erase her from her own son's life. She screamed that she was wearing this dress to honor her late husband, that it was a tribute to David's father, that anyone who tried to remove her was desecrating his memory. David's Aunt Carol tried to intervene, telling the security guards that this was a family matter and they needed to back off. A few of David's cousins started recording on their phones. Other guests were staring in shock. The security guards remained calm and professional. They said again that Patricia needed to leave. When she refused, they took her by the arms, gently, not roughly, and started walking her toward the exit. Patricia went completely limp, forcing them to essentially drag her. She was wailing, "They're assaulting me. Help me. Someone help me. David. David." David came running from somewhere. I later learned he'd been in the groom's suite, paralyzed with indecision. When he saw his mother being escorted out by security guards, he rushed over and demanded they let her go. The security guards explained that they were following the bride's instructions. David turned to the gathered crowd and said, "This is insane. Everyone just calm down. Mom, please, just go change into your other dress. Please." But Patricia was beyond reason. She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "I don't have another dress. I sold it. This is all I have. Are you going to let them throw your mother out onto the street? Are you going to choose her over me?" And there it was. The ultimatum I knew was coming. Choose her or choose me. The security guards were looking at David, waiting for direction. David stood there, frozen, looking between his hysterical mother and the building where I was waiting to marry him. I wish I could say he made the right choice. I wish I could say he told his mother she was being inappropriate and supported the security team. But he didn't. He just stood there, paralyzed, saying nothing. Finally, my maid of honor Jessica appeared. She must have come down to see what was causing the delay. She took one look at the situation and said to the security guards, "Get her out. Now. The bride gave you an instruction. Follow it." The guards nodded and continued escorting Patricia toward the exit. Patricia's screaming reached a fever pitch. "You'll regret this. All of you. This is elder abuse. I'm calling the police. David, if you let them do this, I'll never forgive you." David just stood there watching his mother being escorted out, tears streaming down his face, saying nothing. About 15 of the guests, mostly David's relatives, left with Patricia. They gathered in the parking lot, comforting her, taking photos of her in her wedding dress, posting on social media about how she'd been brutally ejected from her son's wedding for honoring her late husband's memory. The wedding coordinator came to the bridal suite to tell me Patricia was gone. She also gently informed me that we'd lost about a quarter of our guests, and David was in the parking lot having a breakdown. I almost called it off then. I almost said forget it. Send everyone home. This marriage is doomed before it even starts. But I put so much into this day. So much money, so much planning, so much emotion. And I loved David. Despite everything, I loved him. I thought maybe we could get through this. David eventually came back inside. His eyes were red. He changed into his tuxedo like a robot, going through the motions. When we finally lined up for the ceremony, an hour late, he could barely look at me. The ceremony itself was beautiful, I guess. The venue was gorgeous. My dress was perfect. The flowers were stunning. But it all felt hollow. When David said his vows, his voice was flat. When we kissed, it felt obligatory. I could see the guests whispering, looking uncomfortable, checking their phones where Patricia's relatives were already posting their version of events on social media. The reception was even worse. David barely spoke to me. He didn't want to do our first dance. He went through the motions of cutting the cake, but there was no joy in it. He spent most of the night on his phone, reading messages from his family members who were tearing me apart online. By 9 p.m., half the remaining guests had left. By 10, we called it. We were supposed to spend our wedding night at a luxury hotel before flying to Greece for our honeymoon the next morning. Instead, we drove home in silence. David slept on the couch that night, and the next night, and the night after that. We canceled the honeymoon. David said he couldn't leave his mother when she was in crisis. She'd apparently gone home from the wedding and taken to her bed, claiming she was having heart palpitations and needed David to come take care of her. He went. He spent 3 days at her house, leaving me alone in our apartment during what was supposed to be our honeymoon. When he finally came home, he told me his mother was devastated, that she'd been sobbing for days, that his entire family was furious with me, that his Aunt Carol had written me a 10-page letter about what a cruel, heartless person I was, that his cousin posted a video titled, "When Bridezillas Attack," that had 50,000 views and showed Patricia being escorted out while crying. I tried to explain my side. I showed him the photos of Patricia in her white wedding dress with a veil. I showed him the videos of her calling herself the mother of the groom bride. I asked him how he could possibly think any of that was appropriate. David just looked tired. I know it wasn't appropriate, but you humiliated her. In front of everyone. You could have handled it differently. How? I asked. Tell me how I should have handled my mother-in-law showing up to my wedding dressed as a bride. He had no answer. He just said, "She's my mother. She's all I have left of my dad. I can't lose her. We've been married for 3 weeks now, and David has barely touched me. He sleeps on the couch most nights. He's distant and cold. When I try to talk to him, he shuts down. He's been going to his mother's house every day after work. She's apparently still too traumatized to function normally. David's entire family has blocked me on social media. I've received dozens of messages calling me horrible names. Patricia has been telling everyone who will listen that I'm abusive, that I'm trying to isolate David from his family, that she was just trying to honor her late husband and I cruelly had her thrown out like garbage. Some of the videos from the wedding have gone semi-viral on TikTok. People are split. Some say I was justified. Others say I was a bridezilla who should have just ignored it. The comments range from "she did the right thing" to "imagine being so insecure you can't let your MIL wear white" to "this is elder abuse" to "that MIL is psychotic." My own family is supportive, but they're also worried. My mom asked me yesterday if I'm sure I want to stay married to David. She said if he can't stand up to his mother now, he never will. She said I deserve a partner who will protect me, not throw me to the wolves to keep his mother happy. I don't know what to do. I love David. I really do. But I'm starting to realize that I married him hoping he would change, hoping that once we were married he'd finally set boundaries with Patricia. Instead, I'm living in a cold, silent apartment with a man who resents me for not letting his mother wear a wedding dress to our wedding. Patricia has been texting me. Long, rambling messages about how hurt she is, how I destroyed what should have been a beautiful day, how she was just trying to feel close to her late husband, how David is caught in the middle and it's all my fault. She signs every message, "Your loving mother-in-law," which feels like a twisted joke. David says if I apologize to his mother and admit I overreacted, maybe we can all move forward. He says Patricia might be willing to forgive me if I acknowledge that having her removed was too extreme. He wants me to apologize to her for not letting her wear a wedding dress to my wedding. I asked him if he's serious. He said family is the most important thing, And if we can't find a way to include his mother in our lives, our marriage won't survive. So that's where I am. 3 weeks married, sleeping alone most nights, being vilified on social media by strangers and family members alike, being asked to apologize for not allowing my mother-in-law to show up to my wedding dressed as a bride. My friends say I did the right thing. That Patricia's behavior was unhinged, and I had every right to have her removed. That David's inability to support me is a massive red flag. That I should seriously consider whether this marriage can be saved. But I keep wondering, did I overreact? Should I have just let her wear the dress and ignored it? Was it really worth causing this much damage, losing this much family, destroying my marriage before it even really began? Is everyone right that I was a bridezilla who couldn't handle her mother-in-law's grief? I don't know anymore. All I know is that I'm supposed to be a happy newlywed right now, and instead I'm sleeping alone. My husband barely speaks to me, his family hates me, and I'm being told I need to apologize to the woman who wore a wedding dress to my wedding.